Welcome to Sleep with Myth. Close your eyes and let the world fade away. Tonight we drift beyond time, where gods dream and stories remember their light. Before there were men, before mountains touched the sky, there was a storm that could feel. His name was Susanoo, born of the sea's breath and the tears of his father, Izanagi. He was the sound before thunder, the tremor before rain, a god made of emotion too wild for heaven. But even in heaven, sorrow can take root. When Susanoo looked upon the radiant halls of Amaterasu, his sister, the sun, he felt both love and distance. She was all that was bright and certain, he all that was restless and unsure. Together, they were balance, until grief began to whisper in the spaces between their hearts. He missed his mother Izanami, lost to the underworld. He longed for the warmth that had vanished when she descended into Yomi. The storms within him grew louder each day, until the sky itself could no longer hold his mourning. The heavenly court trembled when Susanoo's rage became wind. He tore clouds apart with his voice. He broke rivers with his grief. Amaterasu came to him, her eyes filled with the calm of endless daylight. "Brother," she said softly, "why do you shake the heavens?" Susanoo turned away. "Because the heavens do not weep." "Then go," she said, her words trembling. "Go where your heart will find peace, if peace can still find you." The gods decreed his exile. The winds carried their judgment across the eightfold sky, and lightning marked his farewell. As he prepared to leave, Susanoo went to bid his sister farewell. She waited in her radiant palace, its walls woven of sunbeams. The air between them shimmered, golden light meeting the shadow of a storm. He smiled, but there was sorrow in his eyes. "Let me prove that my heart is not only tempest and grief," he said. "Let us create something together before I go." Amaterasu hesitated, but nodded. He drew forth his sword and broke it into 3 shining fragments. She took them into her hands, breathing light upon each shard. From her breath came 3 goddesses, radiant and still. Then she broke her jeweled necklace, casting the beads into his storm. From his breath came 5 gods, fierce, wild, and proud. And the heavens held its breath as the balance of creation shifted. But peace does not last when a storm still grieves. When Susanoo looked upon what they had made, his heart twisted, pride turning into longing, longing into pain. He raged once more, not out of malice, but despair. He tore the fields of heaven. He uprooted the trees that touched the stars. The sound of his sorrow reached even the sea below. Amaterasu's light dimmed. Her radiance faltered, and she fled into the cave of heaven, sealing herself within. And thus the first darkness fell upon the world. When the gods finally found Susanoo, he stood on the edge of the sky, the horizon trembling beneath his feet. The judgment of the heavens came as thunder, banishment from the realm of light. Susanoo bowed his head. "If my storm cannot belong to heaven, then let it serve the earth." And with that he descended, through clouds torn by sorrow, through rain that remembered laughter, toward a land of rivers and blossoms, where his destiny waited with open arms and trembling hearts. The storm descended upon the mortal world, not as rage but as release. The clouds parted slowly, spilling rain like quiet tears upon the earth, and through them a shadow fell. The god of storms, Susanoo, cast from the heavens, walking between thunder and silence. He landed where mountains met the sea. The air trembled with his breath. The mortals below bowed, not from faith, but from fear. For who could look upon a fallen god and not tremble? But Susanoo did not strike them down. He looked at their small homes, built of straw and wood, trembling in the rain. He watched as they clung to one another, protecting children from the wind that was, unknowingly, his own. Their fragility stilled him. He knelt, pressing his hand to the wet soil. "Do you fear me?" he whispered. No answer came, only the patter of rain, soft and constant, as if the world itself wept with him. For the first time, the god who had broken the sky felt something like humility. He wandered through valleys where cherry blossoms still clung to branches, despite the storm. Their petals drifted through the air like snow, defying the wind that had birthed them. Each blossom reminded him of his sister, light, distant, untouchable. Each petal a memory of a heaven he had lost. He thought of Amaterasu's warmth and the silence that followed her retreat into the cave of heaven. He thought of his own fury, and how it had made the world darker, not brighter. And beneath the falling blossoms, he began to wonder if storms could also bring renewal, not just ruin. At dusk, he came upon a village at the edge of a great river. Its fields were drowned, its homes half broken by flood and wind. He walked among the ruins. A woman, her hands raw from labor, looked up and saw him. Her voice was trembling but steady. "If you are a god," she said, "then take your anger elsewhere. We have nothing left to lose." Susanoo knelt before her, and the rain slowed. "I have no anger left," he said, "only sorrow for what I have done." She looked into his eyes, and for a moment she saw not wrath but weariness. Something in her softened. She bowed her head. "Then stay. But if you bring another storm, it will be your own tears that drown us." He smiled faintly. "Then let me bring calm instead." Days passed. The god of storms worked beside the mortals, clearing fallen trees, mending the roofs he had once torn apart. When he touched the earth, new flowers grew. When he spoke, the wind obeyed. Children followed him through the fields, laughing when he called the rain to dance upon their hands. The people began to whisper his name, not in fear, but in gratitude. Susanoo felt something stir in him, something strange and fragile, a peace that had no lightning in it. But peace cannot live long in a world still haunted by dragons. One night, as the moon rose pale and thin, he heard the river's cry. It was not the sound of water. It was a wail, deep and sorrowful, carried by the current. The woman from the village came running. "Great One," she said, breathless, "the dragon stirs again, the beast that devours our daughters." Susanoo's eyes darkened. "What dragon?" "The serpent of 8 heads and 8 tails," she said, trembling. "Yamata no Orochi." The wind began to rise. Lightning coiled above his shoulders like a serpent of its own. And for the first time since his exile, Susanoo's storm did not come from sorrow, but from purpose. The night carried a silence that was not peace. It was the waiting of fear. Even the river seemed to breathe shallowly, as if it knew what lurked beneath its surface. Susanoo stood upon its banks, the moon reflecting in his dark eyes. Behind him, the villagers knelt, whispering prayers too old for language. Ahead, the water shimmered with unease. He had heard many cries in his immortal life, the weeping of clouds, the roar of wind. But this was different. This was human. A mother's cry for her daughter. A father's broken voice repeating a name swallowed by the current. The god of storms listened, and for the first time he felt his power ache inside him. Not to destroy, but to protect. He followed the river upstream. The moonlight guided him, silver and cold, across reeds that bent beneath unseen breaths. The air thickened with dread, and the scent of blood mingled with rain. Then he saw it, the remnants of an offering. Garlands of flowers torn apart. Vases cracked by claws too large to be mortal. And among them, a single sandal, small and pale, half buried in the mud. He closed his eyes. "This is no offering," he said softly. "This is surrender." From the shadows of the trees, an old man and woman approached, their faces lined with the years of grief. "Great One," said the man, his voice shaking, "we have given 7 daughters to the beast. Only one remains, and tonight it comes for her." Susanoo's gaze turned sharp as lightning. "Where is the child?" The woman stepped forward, tears tracing her dirt-streaked face. "Hidden but not safe. The dragon always finds what it desires." The wind began to stir. The trees bowed before the storm that was his anger reborn. He turned toward the river. "Then I will meet it," he said. "Tell me its name again." The man's voice cracked. "Yamato no Orochi." The name hung in the air like thunder waiting to break. Susanoo could feel the river tremble beneath it. He knelt beside the water, touching its surface with 2 fingers. The current recoiled as if alive. The reflection of the moon rippled, and for a moment, another face appeared in it. A vast, scaled shape with eyes like molten gold. The god smiled faintly. "Then you hear me, serpent. You've taken what belongs to life. Tonight, the storm takes back its sky." The old man fell to his knees. "Please, Lord, we have nothing left to give. No swords, no soldiers." "I need none," Susanoo said. "Only sake and time." He told them to brew 8 barrels of sacred rice wine, each sweeter than the last. "Set them along the riverbank," he said, "where the current bends like the curve of a serpent's spine. When it drinks, I will strike." And so they worked through the night. Even the stars seemed to hold their light as the plan took shape. A trap woven from patience and stormlight. As dawn neared, the earth began to hum, a low vibration that shook the roots of trees. The river swelled, dark and angry, as if the ocean itself was climbing inland. Then it came, a vast body rising from the water, scales black and red like burned iron, 8 heads moving with terrible grace. Its breath stank of death and sake, and its eyes glowed with hunger. Yamato no Orochi, the ancient hunger of the world. It lowered one head to drink from the first barrel. Then another and another, until each throat burned with drunken heat. The ground quaked. The river turned to steam. Susanoo stepped forward, his hand upon the hilt of his blade. Lightning flickered along his skin, calm, focused, divine. He whispered to the wind, "This is not vengeance. This is balance. The morning rose pale and trembling, as though even the sun feared to breathe too loudly. Mist lingered over the river like the ghost of a dream, and from its heart came the soft hum of wings, a crane flying low, circling the village that waited in dread. Susanoo stood beside the old couple's home, the wind stilling at his command. In the doorway a girl knelt. Her hands were folded in prayer. She was the last daughter, the final offering. Her name was Kushanadaheim, her hair dark as the river before a storm, her eyes holding both fear and unbroken calm. When she lifted her gaze to meet the gods, the air itself seemed to pause between them. "You are the one they call the storm," she said quietly. "Will you take me, or will you save me?" Susanoo was silent for a moment. Then softly, "Neither. I will stand between you and what waits in the water." The girl tilted her head, uncertain. Why would a god of storms protect a mortal? He looked toward the river, where the mist thickened with each breath. "Because I have destroyed too much," he said, "and it is time the storm learned to build." He sat beside her, and the scent of blossoms drifted through the air, faint, sweet, and defiant. The world felt almost peaceful, though the serpent's shadow already stirred beneath the river's calm skin. "Tell me," Susanoo said, "why do you not flee?" Kushanadaheim smiled sadly. "Where would I run? The dragon's breath reaches even the mountains. And if I must die, let it be here, where my family's prayers still linger." Her words struck him harder than thunder. He saw in her what he had never seen in himself: courage, quiet and luminous. He turned to the old couple. "Give me a comb," he said. They hesitated but obeyed. Susanoo took the comb in his hand and whispered over it, words older than rain, soft as wind. Then he handed it to the girl. "Place this in your hair. No matter what happens, it will keep you safe." When she slid the comb into her hair, her body shimmered with divine light, and in an instant she vanished, hidden within the comb itself, safe from the serpent's hunger. He held the comb close to his heart. Now let the storm play its part. As the sun began to fall, Susanoo walked to the riverbank. 8 barrels of sacred sake gleamed in the waning light, their fragrance floating like a spell over the water. The old man watched from afar, clutching his wife's hand. "Great one," he called, "if you fail, I will not," Susanoo said, his voice low, steady, and kind. "Not while she waits." The ground trembled. The river swelled and broke, a roar rising from its depths. Mist turned to steam. The air cracked with the hiss of something ancient and starving. From the black water rose Yamato no Orochi, 8 heads, 8 mouths, 8 hungers. Each eye glowed like dying suns, each tongue tasting the scent of wine and fear. It moved with the weight of nightmares. Each head turned toward the barrels, lured by the intoxicating sweetness. The god waited, watching as one by one the dragon drank. The first head fell heavy with sleep, then the second, the third. When the last head lowered, drunk and swaying, Susanoo drew his sword. Lightning flared across the sky. Rain burst from clouds as though heaven itself wept for what was to come. The god whispered to the wind, For every life taken, let this be the breath that restores the world. And he struck. The first strike did not sound like thunder, it was thunder. The river exploded into mist, and light ripped through the sky as Susanoo's blade met the flesh of the ancient dragon. The creature roared, 8 heads thrashing, 8 screams echoing through the valley. Mountains trembled. The air turned to flame. Susanoo stood unshaken. Lightning crowned him, wrapping his body in radiant fury. Every drop of rain that fell became a prayer of courage. He moved with the storm, not against it but as it. His blade, forged from the breath of the heavens, struck with precision and grace. The first head fell, cleaved by divine light. But the serpent did not die easily. Its remaining heads hissed, eyes burning gold and red. One lunged, snapping toward him. Another struck from behind. Susanoo spun, the wind obeying his movement. His sword carved arcs of lightning in the air, and each motion became a hymn to the old gods. The battle raged across land and river. Trees split, the earth cracked, and the stars dimmed, as though the sky itself bowed before the violence of creation. From afar, the old man and woman watched, their tears indistinguishable from the rain. They saw their god vanish into shadow and flash, heard his cry, not of rage, but of release. For every swing of his sword, Susanoo felt the weight of his past, his defiance of Amaterasu, his exile from heaven, his pride. Now all of it was burning away in the storm he had become. One by one the dragon's heads fell. Each impact shook the world. The 8th head, larger than all the rest, lifted high, blood and fire dripping from its teeth. "Storm God!" it bellowed, voice deep as oceans. "You fight against death itself." Susanoo raised his sword. "Then death will learn humility." He leapt. Lightning split the clouds and struck the final blow. The serpent convulsed, its body crashing through the river like a collapsing mountain. The water turned crimson, then clear, then silent. For a long moment, nothing moved. When the storm broke, only wind remained, soft, cleansing, gentle. Susanoo walked toward the dragon's body, his blade still humming with divine energy. He knelt beside it, noticing something glinting between the beast's scales. Curious, he pried it loose, and there, hidden in the creature's tail, lay a sword of radiant beauty. Its edge gleamed with the light of dawn. Its hilt shimmered like the horizon before sunrise. The god held it in awe. This was sleeping inside the darkness, he whispered. The light that hides in destruction. He named it Kusanagi no Tsurugi, the grass-cutting sword. It was not just a weapon, but a symbol that from chaos harmony could be born. He raised the blade to the sky. Thunder no longer answered. Instead, a single ray of sunlight pierced the clouds, resting gently upon him. For the first time since his exile, Susanoo felt peace. He turned toward the house, where the old couple knelt, weeping with gratitude. He opened his hand, and the comb shimmered, transforming once more into Kushinadaheim, unharmed, glowing like the morning itself. "You kept your promise," she whispered. Susanoo smiled faintly. "No, you did. You believed the storm could change. The storm had passed, but its memory lingered in the scent of rain and the hush of the wind. The land was quiet, not empty, but reborn. Where fire had burned, flowers began to open. Where the dragon's blood had darkened the soil, the first shoots of green now reached toward the sky. Susanoo stood upon the riverbank, his sword resting in the earth beside him. The blade that had sung with thunder now gleamed only with morning light. He had not known peace could sound like this, so still, so full. Behind him, Kushanadaheim approached softly. Her footsteps left no mark upon the damp soil. In her hands, she carried a small bundle of blossoms, white and trembling, as if unsure they were allowed to live after so much death. She knelt beside him. "The storm has ended," she whispered. "Will you return to the heavens now?" Susanoo looked toward the horizon, where the clouds parted like the gates of the divine. "I was cast down for my anger," he said, "but here I found something the heavens never held, the fragile courage of life." He turned to her, his voice quieter than the wind. "If I return, it will not be to rule. It will be to remember." Kushanadaheim smiled, the kind of smile that belongs to dawn itself. "Then take this," she said, placing the flowers beside his sword. "They are for remembering, the way the world blooms after sorrow." Susanoo reached out and touched her hand. "Then I will carry them in my heart." He lifted Kusanagi no Tsurugi one last time. The blade reflected the world not as it was, but as it could be, gentle, balanced, whole. A soft voice carried through the air, the voice of Amaterasu, the sun goddess, his sister. Her light fell upon him like forgiveness. "Brother," she said, "the storm has become the rain. You have done what the heavens could not. You have made peace with yourself." Susanoo bowed his head. "Then let the earth keep my lesson, and let the sky keep my name." He raised his hand, and the light of the sun met the shadow of the storm. For a moment, they became one, dawn born from thunder. When the light faded, Susanoo and Kushanadaheim stood together beneath a tree heavy with blossoms. Petals drifted in the breeze like snow from a softer world. He smiled. "Do you hear it?" She listened, the distant rumble of thunder, low and calm, echoing far beyond the mountains. "It is the sound of remembrance," he said. "The storm does not die. It sleeps, waiting for the world to need its rain again." As evening came, the villagers lit lanterns along the river where the dragon had fallen. They floated like stars, carrying prayers downstream. Prayers not of fear, but of gratitude. Children laughed. The wind was gentle, and high above, in the sky that once exiled him, Susanoo's constellation shimmered beside the sun. The storm had become a story. The story had become a song. And that song, soft as breath, vast as sky, whispered to the hearts of those who dreamed. Even gods can fall, but it is in their rising that the world learns to bloom again. Thank you for listening to Sleep with Myth. Close your eyes. The storm has ended, and now it's time to rest beneath the quiet sky.